Now, today we have a special segment, and that is Open Mic. So I'm joined today by Harrison, who is a volunteer at CFMU, and Daniel, who is also a volunteer. So welcome, guys.
Good to be here.
Great. So that song that I just played, very sad song off the album.
Yes.
Great way to start off the segment. But I just really liked kind of the combination of Faye's voice is just so like soft, but then you kind of have also you have her saying things like crying to songs that you put me on, and I kind of related to that. That's just
I
don't know. It's very real for a lot of people.
Yeah. Very relatable for me as well. And you kind of have it paired with like a slower guitar, and I also kind of noticed the bass in the background. I always kind of notice the bass in songs. You don't always kind of pay attention to it, but if you really listen for it, you'll find it there. And kind of closer to the second half of that song, it was so the way I describe it is melancholy, which I don't use that word very often.
Sure. Yes, that is a good word to describe it, I'd say.
But yeah, so this album was released on March 1st, so very recently, and I'm sure a lot of people have been listening to this album, a lot of Faye Webster fans out there. And it's sort of, she kind of describes it here as a document of what happens once you start to create a new life from the ashes of old routines.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of noticed this in the songs as well, because, okay, for example, in the song Time, or TTTT Time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, that's a very, the song just kind of talks about having all the time in a day to kind of do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love those days. Like when you wake up and you have nothing to do.
Yeah, I don't remember when was the last time I woke up and I had nothing to do. Yeah, I don't remember.
For me, it was definitely childhood, which seems to be a big theme in this Faye Webster album. She almost still feels like a child in a way.
Which, if you think about it, when we're in our childhood, we always wanted to, I can't wait to become an adult and do all the things that we wanted. And now that we're adult, we reminisce our childhood when we had no responsibilities and didn't have to do anything. So I think it's kind of a good thing to think about while listening to the Webster's album. Yeah,
definitely. And one song I also kind of liked was Thinking About You. This was actually I think it was the first song. Yes, the first song on the album. And it was just kind of like a repetition, like thinking about you, kind of in the last 3 quarters of the song. And I actually thought this was a great way to kind of represent that theme, because when you're thinking about someone, like I'm talking like romantically speaking, and you kind of like they're on your mind all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have this entire song. In from my interpretation, it kind of shows that theme, and we see that kind of repetition come back in the song called Lifetime.
Yes, yeah. Lifetime. I wanted to mention something about that song. Yeah, the I would say like 2/3 of the entire lyrics are mainly just a repetition of in a lifetime. But at the very first half, Webster mentioned about can't stop thinking of you, can't imagine the life without you. I think that was along the line, and it just made me think about a lot of different things, and also romantically speaking too, pretty good reminiscence, and also as a cherry on top, Webster's voice is so. How would I describe this? Comforting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Comforting.
Sure.
No, it's. A lot of people think that when you think of a comforting voice, it will be like lower or like monotone, ASMR kind of thing. Webster's voice is kind of a bit of a higher comparatively than others.
It's definitely pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still very comforting. It feels like somebody's whispering at my ear.
Yeah, for sure. I find her voice just very warm and comforting in general, which it made me take longer than usual to pick out that this is actually a pretty like sad album, just because of her voice. It just screams warmth and comfort and love, right? But the first instance that I noticed, this is not such a Happy and Lovey album is on But Not Kiss, where she is speaking very nicely about her fond memories, and then suddenly how she doesn't miss them at all. So she's kind of going back and forth with contrasting memories, and this is displayed through instrumental as well. I noticed she would talk about these nice memories, and then the drums would smash and the guitar would come in and she'd say, but not kiss, right? So she had very contrasting feelings about these overall great memories.
Yeah. It almost felt like the part you mentioned, but not kiss. That part, it almost feels like it's like a bar graph that is continuously going up, and then all of a sudden has a drop, and then goes up, and then goes drop, and then it just never goes above that threshold.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that, like that displayed with both her voice, but also all the instruments as well. It made you just feel exactly how she's feeling.
Yes.
Without even the lyrics, just the instruments and voice.
Yeah. Very good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, I also kind of noticed that contrast. I think when I first started listening to the album, I kind of expected it to be like an album about love, but then going on, and then especially in that the song that I just played, Undressed at the Symphony, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is not a happy album at all.
Yeah. Initially, I thought it was just by listening to the instrumentals, because I always listen to the instrumentals first. I thought it was like, oh, this is a nice album. This is very, calm, a little bit uplifting with the tempo changes, triplets, and everything. And then I look at the real lyrics and I'm like, oh, that is sad.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, and that song you were like playing the title track. Obviously, it's very sad, but I got a little chuckle out when she just played after she said "Underdressed" at the Symphony. She started playing an orchestra breakout.
Oh yeah,
and I just thought that showed her sense of humor very well. Like even in the middle of that like super sad song, once you look into it, it just made me like do a little giggle. Like that's just not something you hear on most songs.
That was so unexpected. Yeah. I remember I was listening to the song for the first time. I was like, oh okay, I guess we're doing that now.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt too.
Yeah, adding on to the name and the title song, the quote "Underdressed at the Symphony," I actually got a chance to read some of the explanations Webster wrote, and to paraphrase it, Webster was inspired by her quote occasional compulsion to lose herself amongst concertgoers at the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. So what Webster was doing is Webster often bought ticket to like any kind of an orchestra performance at the very last minute, and therefore Webster mentioned that she was never properly like dressed, like because it's an orchestra, it's a performance, right? It's like a classical music, so you're kind of expected to have like a little bit of a dress code, but Webster used to buy this ticket at the very last minute, and she was the only one who was highly underdressed. And she also said, quote, "I liked that I didn't feel like I belonged."
It's a very interesting feeling to have. Personally, I've always wanted to feel like I belong, but
me too. But
yeah,
for Webster, she liked it. So I guess that was the background story behind the title song and the album. And I was like, Who buys the ticket to orchestra performance at the very last minute? Like, no.
That's kind of a vibe, though.
Really?
It's kind of a vibe.
Like
I don't know. I'm not sure that I would personally do that, but I still think it's a vibe.
Okay, we're talking about as in like making plans last minute, like very spontaneousness, right?
Yeah, spontaneous plans are always.
Yeah, that one I can agree.
I agree with that one too, and I guess that's what she's trying to do, but to an extreme with the whole like being at an orchestra, right? And that's it kind of plays into what I got from the album as a whole. Just Faye's really struggling to like with growing up, and that seems to be a common theme in a lot of her songs, like even outside of this album. So that Underdressed at the Symphony just really reminds you of like maybe a parent bringing their child to an orchestra and they would be underdressed, right? So that's kind of what I got from that. But that reasoning behind the album name is crazy. I did not know she desired to feel like she didn't fit in.
Yeah. The last thing that I wanted to add on the description of that album was she apparently wanted company and distraction, but also wanted anonymity. That's how she described it.
I would not feel very anonymous being like the most underdressed at the The Symphony.
Yeah, I agree. I would feel very out of, I would feel like people are staring at me.
Yeah,
totally.
Because you stand out then to the main group of people, right?
Yeah.
So but also at the same time, because she bought the tickets at the last minute, nobody that she knows are going to the concert too.
That's true.
Right?
That's the sense of anonymity and not
anonymity, yeah.
Anonymity that she's speaking on. I feel like when I go somewhere alone and no one I know, no mutuals are there, it's almost like an individual experience, and no one will know about it if I don't say anything.
Yeah, it's also sometimes exhilarating because you're also like, every time when you go outside from your home, you're supposed to have like a mask, whether you intend it or not. And then when you're just alone and knowing that nobody where you are right now knows you, it allows us to take off that mask and just truly be ourselves. The true privacy within the public spaces.
That's a great point that I never really took the time to thought about, but it's very true for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely very true, and I kind of got that kind of feel from the album as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall great album, and I really loved it.
Me too.
So moving on, we're going to talk about The Great Calm by Whispering Suns. So, Dan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so this is the album that I chose to review. So I actually didn't know of the Whispering Suns before this podcast. And for those of you who don't know, it is a Belgian five-some band with the front woman, Fen Coupens, a very, very Belgian name. So this is a self-produced album, and it was actually recorded in the icy winter of the Netherlands, I found out, which really contributed to the feel of the album. Currently, they're on tour in Europe, and their two previous albums, I listened briefly. The most recent was in 2021, and they were both a lot darker and a higher BPM than The Great Calm, which is a British post-punk album. The most reminiscent of Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures, I found. That is the most similar album in terms of vocals and even the instrumentals. So I think you'd enjoy this album if you like Joy Division, Interpol, The Cure, Arcade Fire, any of those post-punk reminiscent bands. So
I was also reading about how their previous albums were kind of more, different than this one.
Yeah.
So, but even this album isn't super calm, in my opinion.
No, yeah.
I mean, for me, it kind of felt like a rock-ish album. So how were those last two albums then? If this is considered calm.
So I got a sentence that was describing specifically what you were talking about, Noor. So this album, The Great Calm, is apparently less stark album than other albums, such as several others, and less grandeur than Image. So when I listened to the album, I was like, these guys, they really have a lot to talk about. They really want to send us a message. And when I read this description, that apparently this album is less dark and less grand than other albums that they release, I'm like, what is the capability of these guys? Are they poets? I mean, let's be honest, a lot of poetry in music, but still, are they actual poets? Are they trying to, Are they the one that we must follow as a philosopher level kind of thing? So I don't know. So that was an interesting commentary that I found about the Whispering Suns. Yeah.
Yeah. So to add on to that, like title talk about The Great Calm, I found it contradictory as well. Not so much about the calmness, because I found there was a lot of calm themes about the ice cold winter, perhaps like loneliness, which obviously is not good, but it is calm. But the word "the great" in there, The Great Calm, I found the characters, perhaps Fen, in these songs really seem to dislike the calmness of winter in the Netherlands, and they want to get out of it. So I really didn't see this as a great calm, more like the depressing calm.
The depressing calm.
The depressing calm. Maybe it's referring to the seasonal depression or the very, very long winter that we have over here in Canada. Maybe.
Yeah, that was my first thought. I'm like, it's like the winter in Netherlands must be really eerie and cold for them to say this, because the winter in Canada cannot be much better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd much rather be in the Netherlands in the winter. I'll say that.
I mean, it would be a lie if I don't suffer from seasonal depression too during the winter time in Canada, because like it's long and it is snowy and you rarely get sunlight. That's why I take my vitamin D supplements and everything.
Me as well.
Yeah.
But I definitely kind of felt that this album was recorded in the winter. I thought the vocals, they were almost not like singing. It was at times I felt like somebody was just shout talking to me. I don't know how to exactly say it.
No, you're totally right. It's really common in like post-punk, like specifically Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures, like I said, and the way she just is speaking melodically rather than singing, and she's even preserving the style like in aggressive choruses, which is really crazy because a lot of post-punk bands will do that like melodically speaking thing, and then they'll like go on an outrage in the chorus, right? Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to mention about the singing was being that during my first listen to Whispering Suns, The Great Calm, I listened to the voice and I said, this is a very, deep voice register. I'm like, is this Fen singing or is it one of the instrumentalists perhaps providing secondary vocals? No, it's her. Her voice is very, very deep and strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not expect that coming from a vocal. Yeah. Regarding the vocal, I was listening to this Walking Flying song.
Yeah, that was my favorite off the album.
Yeah, me too. And how would I say this? It almost felt like, like when you're sad, when you're like angry, you're full of anger. Sometimes you cry, right?
Yep.
And in those moments, in those very specific moments, your voice become like jittery, like stuttery, or like screeching, screaming, right?
Yeah.
But also sometimes when you're sad, but in calmness, and you're crying, it feels like it's just whispering. And I think from this specific song, I think my perception of the vocal was like crying in calmness. It feels like one wants to give out the message, but you can't do that in screaming, and that makes it more prominent. It's just whispering and the calm sadness. You know what I mean? It sounds like a very grandiose thing, but that's what I got from Walking Flying, the song. Yeah,
no, I feel that for sure, and I got it from Walking Flying, but also other songs, very specifically Cold City. Obviously the theme of the album is very like ominous, like cold winter. The characters wanted to get out of that, and I found the theme to be most prominent than the rest in Cold City with that the organ in that song. I don't know if you guys recall that, but it was very eerie and lonely, and it makes sense because it seems like they're talking about the character's ex, and they feel cold in this winter, like being alone and cold in the Netherlands winter. I would also feel pretty cold there.
Yeah. Seems like Netherlands, the Dutch winter and Canadian winter comes in a lot of common ground, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like we're kind of on the track of sadder or more melancholy albums so far.
Yes. I guess so. I mean, to be fair, in my defense, when I first heard Webster's Underdressed at the Symphony, I did not think it was a sad album. So
me neither.
So. Yeah. I think one song that I liked from this album was Still Disappearing, and specifically because of the piano in the song. I really love when there's sort of like a piano or a guitar that's kind of consistent in the background, where you kind of hear it but you kind of don't, and that's kind of what I got from this song specifically, and I just love it so much.
Also coming from that same song, I was able to notice that I think a trombone was used.
I heard that too. I have that in.
I wasn't sure if it was a trumpet or trombone, but it was more of a lower pitch / tone, so I think it was trombone. And it was like, what a great choice for making an ominous effect.
Oh yeah,
what a great choice.
They've used the organ and the trombone. Maybe there were more that went unnoticed, but that choice of instrumentals, the range of instruments they used, definitely contributed to that.
Oh yeah,
that eerie mood. Something that I also made a note of is, of course, this album is a very like eerie, cold album, but there are some songs that just like almost don't make sense in it. Like, I love them. Some of these were my favorite songs, but like Oceanic was just a random love song like thrown into there, which was a great song. And even The Talker, it was suddenly a very upbeat song with a twangy guitar, which seemed a bit out of place in the post punk album that's the Great Calm is. But that's not to say I didn't love it. I really enjoyed those songs.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what their reasoning was for kind of putting it in this order too. I feel like usually albums kind of do consider the order of the songs and kind of the feel that you get, but when they're disjointed, there usually is some type of a reason. So I don't know.
The one potential reason I got was the song immediately following The Talker was called Balm, like brackets, After Violence, which is almost, it could be referencing that The Talker was the most violent song of the album. I mean, I guess there's no way to prove that right now, but I thought it was very interesting because the song Balm was, again, similar to like Cold City and Still Disappearing, just very, very mellow. So it was almost like the calm after the storm. That's what I got from the song placement.
Interesting.
Yeah, good to
I don't know.
I mean, Whispering Suns, if you guys are listening right now, make sure to send us make sure to send an email to the music director's office. Just wink, wink. Yeah, we're making educated guesses here, but
yes, which I think is fair. It's fair to do.
That's what it's all about here.
Yeah. So this whole segment is about. But yeah, honestly, great album. Again, going on with the sadder theme of albums. But now we're going to be switching to another album, which is Monochrome by Oh Caroline, and I'll let Harrison take it away.
Yes, so Monochrome by Oh Caroline. So I'm going to start giving us some background information about Oh Caroline, because I think it is really I believe it is one of the most interesting background story of the band. So first and foremost, they are headquartered in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So they intentionally use the word headquartered because the band itself, the members who configures the band, are international. So by saying international, what I'm saying is all three members are not in the same space most of the time.
Wow. Did you do any research on like when they're producing an album? Are they just sending each other tracks worldwide, or?
They haven't mentioned that, but what I can tell you is that the group is composed with, and forgive me if I mispronounce some of the names, William Brusma of Boston, Massachusetts, Lasse Petit of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the newest member, Thomas Brattvik, which their location was not revealed. But yeah, as you can tell, William is in Massachusetts, the United States. Lasse is in Winnipeg, Canada. So
wow.
I don't know how the logistics work, but
Dan, you brought up a good point, because how are they producing this music? Maybe they're just traveling a lot.
Yeah, maybe they're traveling a lot, but also at the same time, they describe all three members are not in the same space most of the time.
Yeah, so what I get from that is, I mean, when they're recording an album, they all go to a recording studio to record it, but even that brings the question, like, forming these songs, like, it is infinitely harder to form a song when a vocalist is sending their lyrics overseas and someone comes up with the guitar riff overseas, and it's a lot harder than just jamming and playing with it in the moment. So
yeah, laying the groundwork. Yeah, that's supposed to be something like I'd say in-person setting will be much more desirable because its groundwork is the baseline, but they're not.
Yeah, and this point surprised me significantly, because the main point I've made about this album is the amazing production quality of the album itself, which really resembled Lord to me, the album itself, whom I really enjoy in all the tracks here. So the fact that they're overseas makes this production quality achievement much more outstanding.
Oh, Caroline, if you're listening to us right now, please give us a lore drop. How you guys are doing it. Like, we'd be intrigued to know. And also, I mentioned Thomas. So Thomas is the newest member, right? And before Thomas joined, Oh Caroline's music was more of a lo-fi, folk, calmer vibe. Not that I'm saying it's not calm right now, but now that Thomas joined, they now define their music as experimental pop. So
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I have heard some of their previous songs, and yes, it was more of a lo-fi, calmer, folky vibe. And now this album, quite a bit of a pop, yes. But speaking of the experimental pop that they have defined for this album, let's dive into the album. So their description of Monochrome is, quote, aiming to take you back to the crisp fall air of your childhood. The band creates a sentimental narrative by reflecting back to simpler times.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think definitely, especially because it's more of a pop album. And when I think of the songs that I used to listen to back in like 2012, 2014, even earlier than that, a lot of it was just pop on the radio. And that's kind of what I got from this album as well. One specific song was Second Chances. That song kind of reminded me of like FIFA pop back in 2014.
Yeah.
But
yeah. For me, the entire album, even though it sounds like pop, it gave me nostalgia back to like childhood, because, well, I don't have that much of a childhood memory, but what I can remember is I think I was like in kindergarten or something. I was hanging out in playgrounds, and I was doing a lot of questionable things like making sandcastles and then eating the sand out of that sandcastle.
Very interesting choice, Harrison.
Thank you, Noor. I once again, I was in the kindergarten at the time, but if I am to have a background music for those nostalgic memories, I definitely choose songs from this album, because I think they've done a really, really good description in terms of bringing back to the good old childhood era of your memory. It's hard to explain. It just brings me back to simpler times when I didn't have any bills to pay, when I don't have to think about when I'm gonna do my oil change for my car, something like that. Yeah.
But even though it is kind of more of a pop album, I still found some like lo-fi elements.
Yes.
At least when I first listened to it, I didn't have the description of the album. I just went in, without anything, and I kind of did get like a lo-fi feel, especially in some of the songs. So maybe that's kind of just also their previous music, their previous style, kind of blending into this newer style. But
yeah, the album consists of 12 songs featuring both lo-fi and experimental pop. I think it's they've done a great job of having the good mixture between the old style, and also with the addition of the new member, they're experimenting a lot of different things, and I think it was a good balance of between the experimental stuff and also sticking to what they know that they do well on. So it's a good balance, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a great balance as well, and bringing you back to that, like the fact that this album really takes you back to that dream world of adolescence and childhood. I think on top of the fact that the lyrics helped bring people back to that time, I think the twinkly electronic beats and mixed with that folk guitar also really got you lost in this childhood memories. Very specifically that those twinkly electronic beats. That's really it brought me back to like lullabies almost.
Yeah, lullabies. Yeah. That's the word I was going for. Yeah, lullabies. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's not like huge, loud, or like popular songs that we can sing in a karaoke or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a lullaby that you just listen to. The birds chirping at the sunset, when the sky is clear, just playing on the swings of the playground. Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to describe the lullabies. Yeah,
that's how I would totally describe like the vocals as well. Like obviously the instrumentals have that element of lullabies, but even the vocalist of Oh Caroline really just felt like one big lullaby to me in the best way possible. Like I really enjoyed this album. It was just very, very calming to my soul, partly because it takes you back to childhood, and that's always a calming feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just more on the vocals, I found her voice to be I guess I was also listening to the Faye Webster album, so it was very different because Faye's voice is very sort of higher, more soft. But here you have still a calmer voice, but it's more low. It's more, I don't know. It's kind of soothing in a way, which I guess kind of goes well with the overall theme of the album. But I don't know. I just really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the voices are so different, but I can't find that like word to distinguish them. They're both like female, very calming in a way, but I can't find a way to distinguish them. But they're very, very different.
Yeah, I feel like Webster's voice would be perfect for like whispering, as I said. But Oh Caroline's vocal, I think Lasa's voice is like late night talks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Late night talks, like late night when you're like having a sleepover with your friends, and then the lights are off, and both of you guys are just, made yourself into a burrito in a bed and just staring at the ceiling together. Absolute darkness, but lower voice, sleepy voice. But you still have the conversations with. I think that's the vibe that I'm getting.
That is a great way to put it. I could not think of one word to describe like what you were trying to describe, and I think you did it best with that story time of a sleepover feel. Like from that, another like story that would perhaps encapsulate the vocals in Monochrome is like a night under like the stars. Just that maybe you're tired and just looking at the stars, very, very relaxing, and I think they do provide similar moods. Just in an attempt to try to describe Monochrome, which is a very tough thing to do because it's a great album.
Yeah, great albums rarely can be describable in one word or in a one specific theme. So
it's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely an album that I'm gonna be having on repeat when I'm when I'm on the bus and I just want to relax and I just want to get, again, the same thing that you two have been both saying, just want to get lost in a different world. But yeah,
that's another great way to put it.
Yeah.
If I have to choose one specific favorite song from this album, I'd say I think this selection will be unlike what most people will, but I think I'll choose Can't Breathe. So song's title quite literal, as in a literal sense, is describing like having a difficulty breathing, whether that is mentally or physically. But I found that the song itself, especially with the instrumentals, it's quite slow and calming.
More so than the others?
Yeah. So it almost feels like it's a contrast. The title, it says Can't Breathe, but the song itself is so slow and calming that if you follow along the tempo to breathe, I think you'll have a pretty good calming deep breath. So
wow,
that's a great discovery. That's like, I did not think about that at all when listening to Can't Breathe. I thought it was a phenomenal song, but I did not. Perhaps that was intentional. I can't see any other reason why they would name it Can't Breathe.
Because the thing is, at the very last part of the song, the tempo goes up.
That's gotta play a role.
It starts off really slow and calming, and then it's an exponential growth in terms of the tempo.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that being the reason why they named it that, but I guess we won't know for sure.
Yeah, it makes me think.
Yeah.
Again, Oh Caroline, contact us if you have the answers.
Yes.
But yeah, overall great album, and thank you for joining me today, Harrison and Daniel.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Appreciated it. Yeah,
my honor.
In terms of let's end this off with Can't Breathe, just for fun.
Oh, interesting.
Let's let everybody hear.
I think it's a great choice.
All right.